So the bolts have finally arrived. So these are something plated, high tensile. Got a selection of M8s and M10s. These took a week to arrive. I think we're all spoiled with Amazon now, having stuff delivered next day, but they turned up now, so that's good. I'll put these on. These are the proper bolts that are going to go on the fixings for the landing pads and the subframe connections. So I'm going to put these on and nip them up tight for when I start making the box section for the plate. So I've seen another YouTuber when he was fabricating an engine mount, and he basically got some, I found some, they're M10s I think, these ones, I'm not sure, they could be M8s. Anyway, I found some studs that fit in the motor mount block there, and what he did was he basically just cut the heads off them. If you can see, I've ground a point on the tips of them. So that what will do for me is once I get a nice square piece of card up ready, I'll push it through, and then theoretically that should give me my exact location of the stud points for the fixing mounts. So I'm going to get a piece of cardboard now and just try and press it over as best as I can and see roughly where I need to come out to. It looks like I've got to come out past the motor by the looks of things with the plate. Probably up to the front of this point, maybe just past this point. I'm thinking maybe I may have to come off here with an extra fixing just to hold the plate. Also, I'm wondering whether this roundish part of the motor here, whether it sticks out more than the rest of the body. If that's the case, I may just have to cut another piece of plate and weld it on the inside, or use it as a spacer piece across this part here. Or you could even just use a few washers maybe. I'll see. Anyway, let's get some cardboard on there and come back and see how it looks. Made a rough cut of the cardboard now. I'm gonna trim that down. Round. So I'm gonna trim around the back, come up around the two top ones. And I think what I'll do, I'm gonna just come straight across to the front of the motor and just leave that big blank square at the moment. What I'm looking at now that's come a bit more apparent is how close that motor mount is now to the cardboard, which will be the plate. Still could be doable. Be very, very small stubby piece of metal there. So I'm going to tidy that up. I'm going to cut that around nice and neat. Just going to go around the top. I think they will need a backing spacer off the back of that, just at the top end I think. Shape the cardboard as best as I could. I think I'm going to go with that shape for now. That's pretty much picked up 3 good fixings there. So wherever the box section comes on and meets up, I can still trim that afterwards to suit, cut off the excess maybe. Let's come around the other side and have a look. So depending on how it looks, I may make a small plate that will come off them, maybe 2 bolts maybe, or even 3, like a C plate, and then weld it onto the back side of the metal plate here. The plate has been cut now, and I've just put it on loose there on the studs that I've created. And if we come to this angle, you can clearly see that it's going to need some severe amount of spacing here, judging by those gaps up there. I'm thinking I may put a spacer at the bottom and then a spacer at the top, because the round part of the motor here at the front is obviously sticking out a bit. So I'm going to have to make a plate there and there. So the plate's going to be the plate, which is staying as it is. The other issue I have now is it looks like my landing plate looks far too close to me. I haven't centralised the motor yet, if it is even centralised. It may well be centralised at the moment. I'm going to get under the car and have a look. There's a rib line on the gearbox on the underside, and I might just visualise a straight line down where the prop goes to see that that's centre to the prop line. I mean, it may need to come over. Even if it comes over, there's a good 2 or 3 inches on that side, and it's pretty much probably about 1 inch on this side. So even if it moved over another inch, it might be enough. It's only going to be a small piece there then that will go on. Cheers. Okay, so I found some plates that I cut up. So I'm going to have 1 spacer at the bottom, which will be that one. That will get welded I'm just going to put a few tacks on that. It doesn't need, not going to be for strength, it's just more to hold it in place. So I'm going to put that on there. And I've made these two as well, so they'll get centralized. On there, I'll tack one in first. Then I'll go ahead and tack the second one in, like that. So I'll have two at the top, one at the bottom. That should give me ankles? That should give me ample spacing, I hope. That should be sufficient, I hope. Otherwise it's going to start getting a bit silly, I think. So I'm going to set the welder up. Just going to put a few tacks to hold these in place. And we'll come back when that's done and we'll see how it lines up on the car, on the motor. Don't forget your T, Mr. T. So that's just rough tacks on there. So let's go ahead and just slide it on and see how it looks. So the plate's fitted now. You can see I've got a much better gap now between the motor body and the plate, which is better for me and better for the motor. So that's a good gap there for the motor now, so I'm happy with that. I think what I'm going to do next is, I think the next step's going to be try and centralise the motor now. I think I'm going to get under the car and see. I've brought the motor more over this way slightly now, so it's more centre of the two mounts, which is quite good. You can see the gap there. Also what I did was, we can have a look in a minute, I can't put a level on anything. I tried to level the car as best as I could to the seal to give me like a sort of a datum mark. Then I can gauge what, I'll just go wherever the bubble sits and I know that I need to be at that point really to get a level with on the car. I don't think the car's level horizontal, but that's not really an issue at the moment. What I'm interested in is getting the angle of the tail end of the gearbox up and trying to get it so the prop goes back parallel down the car. I had a quick look and the front of the motor was really high, because when I did put the level on it, it went down at quite an angle, which there is a rubber bellows that goes on the end of the gearbox onto the prop shaft. It's like a big donut thing. I don't know where it is at the moment, but which would probably work, but it might cause premature wear on the bearings and whatnot and the rubber bellows. So I'm going to try my best now to, I'm still governed by the inside of the car obviously, because I want to get where the gear shifter comes up into the gearbox tunnel. I want to get that as centre as possible, obviously back to the same hole. I can't do nothing with the front of the motor because in hindsight now, this could have been any orientation when I put the motor on, because I just put it on the pivot and then I tried to gauge. In hindsight now, I would have tried to have got it more accurate now. So the motor is sitting sort of more, as you can see, it's on an angle there. It doesn't affect anything. It's just the way I've bolted it to the plate really. I suppose if I adjusted it more that way, so it's more parallel with the engine, I could probably put a level on it. So this is unfortunately going to be slightly twisted, I think. You can see I've really wound down the motor really, and that's probably a bit too low for my liking. There's probably like 0.5 centimetre there gap. There's not a big gap there at all. I'm going to wind it up a fraction, I think. I think that's far too low. You know, if there's any, I don't know how much bounce is going to be in those supports, but that could potentially hit the chassis frame, the subframe. If I go over a big bump or something. Under the car now, I'll try to re-level I've got those type of jack stands on the car, so best as I could with the notchiness of it. If we look at the level, so it's not too bad. It's just inside the line there. The bubble's just off the line. That's on the bottom of the door. Obviously the door could be anywhere. So that's on the seal, so we're going to go by that then, I think. Okay, so it's hard to do this all holding a phone and every other this one-handed and film at the same time, so I'll just tell you what I'm trying to do here. So I've got my little spirit level here, just to make sure I'm running. So I was wondering maybe if the level's not perpendicular to the rib line. So what I'm doing, I'm holding that there to get the bubble. What I'm doing is two-handed, obviously, off. And then what I'll do, I'll get the line off the laser to follow the parallel straight line, so it's running perpendicular to the line. And then with my laser line, I know this isn't very engineering perfection, but I don't know if you can see going down the car, that's pretty much as good as I'm going to get it, to be honest. It's not way off anyway. I mean, it's not off like that, so it's quite good. It's not 100% accurate, but I'm getting a good line going down the bottom of the car there through the middle of the tunnel where the prop shaft's going to be. So we're going to leave it there, I think. That's quite good. I'm happy with that. It's even going through that centre nut down the end there, whatever that is. So that's quite good. Right, we're going to stick with that, I think. We're going to leave it in position. I'm going to mark up the top position so I know where the chains are hanging. So I'm happy with that. We're going to leave it there. The gap I'm going to have to leave going on there on the top. I think the next step is we're going to drop the subframe again now, and then I'm going to try and work out the next plate on the right side now. So we'll come back shortly.